The Cardinals and the Saints are going to be matched up, obviously. And, well, the Saints are overwhelming. And here's my sense of it, Ben. The Saints are going to crush the Cardinals. And that's not because I don't like the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are actually, as I said last week, a little better than people expect. And they showed that against Green Bay, except apparently their defense. But here's how I figure it. That defense versus the Saints offense, 128 points. I don't see how the Cardinals can win.
Well, I definitely see how the Cardinals can win. They score every time they have the ball.
That's true.
I mean, and the Saints' defense has a propensity to make big plays but give up massive amounts of yards. The Saints are quite capable of giving up 41 points in a game. I think we feel that from the Saint defense. Mm-hmm. But if they make a couple of big plays, then they only give up 24 points, and all of a sudden they got an easy 41-24 win. But the Cardinals could easily move up and down the field on the Saints. I don't think they will. I think they're playing in New Orleans. It's very tough there. I'm not a believer in sort of how you're playing at the end necessarily mattering. It might, but you can't just decide that it does matter. Saints got to 13-0 and then didn't really play a meaningful game after that. They had struggled in their previous 2 wins, so they struggled for a little bit. But I have a feeling that with the home crowd, they'll put up a lot of points. The Cardinals will probably make some mistakes. Kurt Warner will probably have a turnover or 2 in there. And once you get a 2-touchdown advantage, tough to keep the Saints from keeping it. So, yeah, I think the Saints will win. I think they'll cover. I think they'll score 40 points.
Yeah, I think so too, and I'm not worried about those last losses. I think they were irrelevant. I know
the only concern about the Saints is that they didn't play that well in the wins before those last losses either.
I know, but they were so dominant early on. I think they're going to go back to being dominant, at least for this game. We'll see, obviously. And then we go next to the AFC, Ravens versus Colts. See, the thing is, I think they're almost all going to be blowouts this week, which means tune in. You're going to have great, exciting, close finishes at the end, right? But I think the Colts are going to blow the Ravens out of the water. I think they're just way too good.
I agree. The Ravens are not the Trent Dilfer Ravens. These guys can move the ball. They put up 33 points on the Patriots. They can still do that. Joe Flacco threw 10 passes. He completed 4 of them, but he's had games this year where he threw more than 40 balls and over 300 yards. They can move it.
Plus, if you're going to beat the Colts, it helps to keep them off the field, and the Ravens have a great running game.
Yeah.
So I hear that. But I just don't think that they match up.
I don't either. The Ravens have lost like 10 straight to the Colts. So they lost to them, I believe, this year 17-15, and they lost it when Steven Hauschka, their original kicker, missed a very makeable field goal at the end of the game, or the Colts would not have gotten to 14-0. The Ravens were the team that came closest to having them beaten this year. That said, I agree with you. I mean, I don't care how the Colts were playing at the end of the year. I think they're better. I just don't think the Ravens should be. I think the Ravens are, without having done an ounce of research, I will say that the Ravens are the best 9-7 team, certainly that the NFL has seen in a long time. They're a really good team. They have no business. They're like an 11-5 team.
Right.
It's a good football team.
The only reason I wouldn't bet on that game is I don't ever bet on Manning in the playoffs. Okay. Now, trust me, I've lost money on both sides. But having said that, you never know when Manning gets happy feet. So tune in anyway, but I suspect it's going to be a blowout. All right, final game that I think is going to be a blowout is Chargers-Jets. Chargers, hottest team in the NFL. Jets, at this point, now a little overrated. Last week they were a little underrated. Now they're a little overrated. That we're going to find out if that defense really is the number 1 defense. But I suspect, and the Chargers have no returner. He can clown any game. Having said that, I think the Chargers beat him bad.
I think the Chargers beat them bad. I think the Chargers' offense. I think the Jet defense is a good defense. It may be the best defense, but it's not. It's not the '85 Bears. It's not the '01 or whenever the hell the Ravens were so good. It's a good defense. It's a very good defense in San Diego against a rested, really talented team. I think the Chargers. As soon as the Chargers put up that 27th point, it's like a point the Jets can't possibly score that many points. And I think, Mark Sanchez had a very credible first game in the playoffs. They managed the clock incredibly well. They managed the down and distance for him, and he was 12 of 15. He's got to throw a lot. I think those interceptions will come back. I don't think the Jets, who are clearly headed in the right direction, will keep up with the Chargers.
And I feel like saying to the Jets, you did good. You got all the way here. You won a playoff game. Good job. Go home now.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably right.
Right. And then finally, the only game that I think could be close is the Cowboys-Vikings. I mean, you want to talk about hot. The Cowboys are smoking hot into the playoffs. I didn't believe in them, but, they made believers out of me a little bit in the last game. But you know what? 2 crushing victories, but they're both against the Eagles. I know they beat the Saints earlier, but it didn't matter that much to the Saints. I still don't like the Cowboys. And I like the Vikings. So I think it might be close. but I'm going to go Vikings.
I think that what the theory that I'm using, and I agree with you, that's obviously the only game that's about inside of 3 points. The other games are all about a touchdown. The key, even the Chargers just 7 over the Jets, which I think is a low number. But I'm horrible at this. But what is important is that this year in the NFL, there were 4 dominant teams. They're all basically healthy. Mm-hmm. They're all playing at home, where all of them have a distinct home field advantage. They haven't, they didn't lose a meaningful game at home. At least the Vikings didn't, and the Saints did lose that game to the Cowboys. But they all have a significant home field advantage. I think they'll all win. I think the best 4 teams, the unquestioned best 4 teams in the NFL, will come out of it, and it wouldn't surprise me if, one of these games will end up being close. But it would. My hunch is all 4 home teams will win. They're the 4 best teams. If there is an upset lurking, I feel like just because of the matchups, it's that the Ravens are capable of beating the Colts. I don't think they will, but I think they're capable of it. I don't think Cowboys over the Vikings should even be considered that much of an upset. But that one wouldn't surprise me real quick if that one ended 41-17. The Vikings just took it to them.
It's entirely possible. Here's what I can guarantee you. Many of the things we've said here will not happen.
Most will not happen.
And in the end, they might be great games, and you might get a couple of upsets. Because, damn it, with football, you just don't know. I understand that's why they play the games on Sunday and this weekend on Saturday.
Real quick, we've seen a disintegration of home field advantage in the NFL, and in part, Bill Simmons at the sports guy at ESPN documented it. It's in this century, really the last 7 years, it's happened. In large part because these new stadiums don't provide as much of a home field advantage, because true fans don't go because it's such a huge pain in the ass and so incredibly expensive to go to these games. So I buy all that. But what he points out is that there are a couple of places that are still home field advantages. One, old outdoor stadiums. Jack Murphy Stadium, where the Chargers play. Dome stadiums, where the Colts play, where the Vikings play, where the Saints play. So there's 4 real home field advantages here.
Yeah, that's a good point. So if things go as they should, you should have a lot of crushing victories this Sunday and Saturday.